Welcome back to the Rhonda Swan Show. Well, today I'm so excited because I have another unbelievable guest right here in my studio in Bali. Now, this is a really special one because he's my neighbor, and I've been so inspired since the day that I've met this guy. First, I'm like, who is this California surfer kind of dude hanging out over here? And then I get to meet this guy. His name is Bobby Priest. He's actually the founder of the book series, The Voices of the Moon, Little Bobby's Voices of the Moon. And we're going to talk about this book series. But what I was so enamored by and why I wanted to bring Bobby on to the show is because he's got a back of, history of not only being in finance, writing columns for finance magazines, being in corporate, the president of the MBA Association of his university, and found himself wanting something different. He lost his parents. He dove deeply into music and his artistic ability just to really find himself. And here now, he's in Bali, Indonesia, living his ultimate perfect day every day. And he's the founder and the creator of this amazing book series that's not only connected to the most beautiful stories, but also to music. So without any further ado, Bobby Priest.
Thank you for having me, Rhonda. I'm excited to be here. Yep, I really appreciate you having me here.
I know, it's so cool.
I get all choked up when you start talking about the past and all this kind of stuff and what got me here and all that. So it's pretty special.
Can we talk about that? Are you open to sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the life story.
Yeah.
The long story short is that I just got tired of corporate America, and I realized, try not to get too emotional.
Yeah.
I realized there was more to life. And the first step was when I lost my father in 2003 and I went through a life change and really asked myself a simple question. What is it I want? What do I want to do with my life? And for those of you who have lost a parent, most of us go through this change. And so the first time it happened when my father died, the answer to the question was, well, I want to start I want to travel to tropical places and make a living out of it. And so I had a successful financial business in Colorado, up in the mountains. I skied every day, and I didn't work a whole lot. I worked enough to take care of my clients, and it was a great life. But you know what? It wasn't enough. It wasn't really what I wanted. Something was missing. So I sold my business, started an international real estate business, started traveling to Costa Rica, Turks and Caicos, and turned it into a business. And then the real estate market crashed. And 3 years later or so, the real estate market crashed. So I was left with, okay, now what? And so not unlike you, as an entrepreneur, I've always been spirited as an entrepreneur. And so I started just chasing my dreams as an entrepreneur. And during that point in time, it's hard to raise money, and it was a lot of work. And I don't mind the work, but I was losing my passion. It was chasing money, trying to get things started. So it became, something was missing. Then my mom passed away. And in 2013, exactly 10 years, they were married for 57 years. She really lost her will to live, although she had 7 kids, 17 grandchildren, great-grandchildren. It was, for her, my father was her life.
Yeah.
So she passed away, and again, I asked myself the same question. I said, you know what? No longer do I just want to travel to tropical places and make a business out of it. I just want to move to a tropical island and follow my passion, which is music. I've always been a hobby, I've always played guitar since I was a kid. My mother was very musical and artistic, and so I just wanted to do what I loved. I didn't know how I was going to do it. My friends thought I was crazy. There was like, you can't just leave everything. And I said, yeah, I can. What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. Where are you going to go? And I was sitting in my hot tub with a friend of mine, and she said, where are you going to go? And I said, I don't know. I said, Bali was always on the list because growing up as a California surfer, you always hear about Uluwatu.
Yeah, right.
And then Thailand was on the list, but there's no surf there. That wasn't critical for me, but it was kind of important. I surfed since I was a kid, and it is part of my life. And then in Colorado, snowboarding, and then I was another long story, but had a stint as recently, actually, just before I left, as a professional demo skateboarder for a skateboarding company as a fun job. I've always done fun jobs. In the mountains, I was started as the National Ski Patrol. So I've always supplemented my job with fun stuff, but something was missing. So my mom died. I decided to move to a tropical island. We sat there and she said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I don't know where to go." I thought Bali, Thailand, and I had this beautiful motorcycle that I used to ride in the Colorado mountains, and it was my pride and joy. And I thought, what about maybe South America, traveling on a motorcycle? But that's a whole different trip. That's stressful.
Yeah, totally.
You got a motorcycle to deal with.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Not so much the motorcycle, but the environment that you're in South America. So she said, it changed everything. She said, if you go to Bali, and she had come here on a retreat for yoga, she goes, "You're never going to come home." I was like, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, right.
To Bali. So I basically picked up my stuff within the next month after my mom died, and rented out my house, put everything in the basement, rented my house out, and moved to Bali. Came to Denpasar, to the airport, went to Kuta, the closest town. I didn't know where I was going. Went to Kuta, found a hotel room, parked in a hotel room, and just started to try and figure it out. Ended up in Ubud. And then I knew I wanted to write, because I've always written more technical stuff, but I love creative writing. I've always kept journals, and I knew I wanted to do music. So I just started playing music and writing, and I had this dream of writing a series of young adult novels. And so the goal was to teach kids. I was fortunate when I was in high school to do the FSL, Foreign Study League, and go to Europe.
Yeah.
And that changed my life as far as opens your eyes. You know, California kid, you think California's everything.
Yeah.
And then you go to Europe and it's like, that's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And so that gave me the travel bug and that kind of thing. So I knew that I wanted to share that experience with kids, because a lot of kids in the U.S. are so sheltered. People in the U.S. generally don't travel a lot.
Yeah, it's true.
So I wanted to share with children what life is like in other countries. So my idea was to write a series of young adult novels. Rainy season, I would go to a country, learn about the culture, and then work that into the next book. And then each year, do a different book woven into this clever story, and teaching kids about culture in different places. And Bali is natural to do that. There's so much to learn here, and the culture is so beautiful. And so I was about halfway through that book, and I learned about self-publishing. And stupid me, I went, well, I just want to write something that I can do fast and self-publish it, just to learn how self-publishing works for my young adult novels. So I go, I'll write a children's book. I thought that was going to be easy. So I wrote the first song, and that turned into the book. So all my books, the lyrics of the song, I write them as songs. They're actually the words to the book.
Yeah, well,
and they're lullabies.
Yeah, let's talk specifically about it. So, because I love this story. You've been now in Bali for 10 years, right?
Yep.
And now you've got your own place, your own boutique hotel. It's pretty magical, but your passion is still music and writing and creativity.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So the Voice of the Moon. Why does it call the Voice of the Moon?
Well, when I first started the series of books, I think the title didn't come until later, but I wrote this book about happiness. So the first song.
That's this first edition.
That's the first edition.
Right?
Yeah, that's the first one. So I wanted to teach kids that happiness is not about material things. Happiness is about what's on the inside, not what's on the outside. And so I wrote the song, and when I write songs, I write them pretty fast. And so I wrote the song, and then I realized it's not that easy. I need to illustrate the book. And I went, what am I going to do now? So I started looking for illustrators, found an illustrator, and through another means, and then it just wasn't working for me. And so then I ended up, I was like, who do I know that's an illustrator? And in high school, there was this amazing artist, Roy Gonzalez. And I was like, I wonder if Roy still is doing art. So I found him on Facebook, sent him a message, and that turned into a whole can of worms. He had an agent in Hollywood, and then the agent got wind of what I was doing, and then they said, this is an amazing concept, write the books, and we'll do kids shows and potentially animated feature film for kids. They heard the music, they loved the concept, they love everything I was doing. And so I brought him here, and that's how I actually ended up in Bingen. I brought him to Cheonggu. I was living in Cheonggu at the time, and he was illustrating the books. I was doing 2 other songs and writing the music.
How fun.
And then I said, this isn't the creative enough atmosphere.
Yeah.
I know this place. It's called Bingen. You'll love it.
Which is where we live.
So we packed up all of our stuff from Cheonggu. We came down to Bingen. We didn't even have a place. And I said, well, there's plenty of places there. So we walked along the beach, and every place was booked out except this one place. And it was an 8-bedroom hotel, and the rooms were tiny and not very good, but it had a big table outside with a beautiful view. And I go, this is it. I'll rent 2 rooms. So we rented these 2 rooms for months working on the books. And then the owner of the land came to me and said, do you want to live here? And I was like, well, we kind of do live here. And he said, no, come look with me. And there were these stairs that went up to nothing. And he goes, you can build a house here. And I went, really? And he said, yeah, do you want to live here forever? And I was like, yeah. Sure. Why not? So my dream, and backing up when I first came to Bali, my goal was focus on my music and my books. Didn't know what music, didn't know what books, but I was going to focus on writing and focus on music. And the second thing is I wanted to live where I could see the ocean and walk to the beach. And so I ended up building a custom home on top of the hotel, which had 2 guest rooms for an artist in residence and someone else. And I had a full recording studio to do the music. I had an art studio to do the artwork. And then my master bedroom and a beautiful kitchen, big deck. It was the perfect creative space. So that's where we parked it and really started to refine. I started to refine the book and get it ready for publishing. And then I finished the place. By the time I was ready to publish, it was actually the same week. I was at the gym. I get a phone call from someone down on the beach, and they said, there's a huge fire next to your house.
Oh my God.
And think about it. This book is about happiness. I was publishing the book on happiness that said happiness is not about material things.
Oh my
Everything
goodness.
I had was in that house. And so long story short, the hotel next door caught on fire, caught our hotel and my house on fire, burned everything to the ground. So
that was 5 years ago?
That was April 4th, 2017. Yeah.
6 years ago.
So I was at the gym. I came racing down, ran down the hill. People are like, you can't go down there. It's too dangerous. And I was like, get out of my way. I wrapped my shirt around my face. I went to the front door of the building. And, they teach you that if the door's hot, don't open it. Well, it wasn't only hot. There were flames coming through the crack in the door. I couldn't go through the door to get in my house. Yeah. So I ran down on the beach, climbed up to the 3rd floor to try and climb into my recording studio, but I couldn't reach because of the overhang. So I'm standing on the railing, trying to grab onto the roof to pull myself up and over. And I couldn't get in. So then I was like, my computer with all my books, with everything, my recording studio, I didn't care so much about. It was my computer that had all my books, all my music, my hard drive right next to my computer with everything. Nothing's backed up to the cloud then.
Right.
It was all on my hard drive. All I needed to do was get my computer. So I was panicked, and I started just punching the roof to try and get through. And there's actually a video of this on Instagram. Someone was videoing, and I collected video after the fact. And so I'm punching as hard as I can, and finally a piece of the roof broke off, and I went, okay, I can do this. And so then I just frantically started punching through the roof. My knuckles were all bloody, and I actually punched a hole in it and then climbed up and over into the recording studio.
You went into the burning house.
Through the fire, through the kitchen.
That's like a real movie. That's a movie scene.
You don't think about it then. It was like
you were like, I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna get out.
To me, it was safe. To everybody else, they're like, you're crazy. What have you done? What do you?
Oh my gosh.
So I went to open I always keep my recording studio locked. So I went to open the door and the door's locked and I was like, the key, where's the key? And I always hide the key in an oven mitt in the kitchen. So I had to go through to the other side of the kitchen, got it out, opened the door, ran in, and my computer was sitting there. I slammed it closed.
No fire in that room yet?
Not in that room yet, no, but it was coming this way. So I put it in a backpack that was there on the floor, grabbed it, turned one of my favorite guitars, a blueberry guitar, custom-made guitar, was sitting right there.
Like, I'm taking that, baby.
Grabbed that, so I had my backpack, my guitar, ran out to the deck, and I believe it was Rosanna that was down below on the beach, and she's like, throw it down, and I'm like, backpack's heavy. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna kill her if I throw this off of 3 floors and she doesn't catch it, right? And there just happened to be a big tree that we had growing on the beach. And it was a big bushy tree. And that hadn't caught on fire yet. So I took the backpack and threw it into the tree to break its fall. That fell down to the beach and I was like, okay, I took my guitar, threw that into the tree. That's video too. Goes down and then climbed over the side and then spent the rest of the day fighting the fire. And so the ironic thing was that, after I thought about it, I was like,
oh my gosh, the book's on happiness.
Oh my God, the book's on happiness, and happiness is not about material things. I've lost every material thing I had in this fire. So I was like, it could have saved my life. Because I was like, I can't be hypocritical now. Here I am teaching people about happiness. It's about material things, or is not about material things. And if I lose it, after losing my material things, I'm just the biggest hypocrite ever.
The biggest
So
test.
I was like, I have to force myself. So it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. And then I stood there with Papa Junie, who's the landowner and owned the hotel. And we stood out on the reef, arm in arm, watching the whole place burn. And so he said, I can't afford to rebuild. And I said, I'll rebuild the whole thing. I'll build a beautiful hotel. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll do it. So that became my goal over the next 5 years. It took me 5 years to do it. And it was a nightmare every night thinking about how am I going to do this? I didn't know how, but I knew I would. And there's a big lesson there in manifesting. Because you never know how you're going to do things.
Just determined to do it.
But just don't give up. One foot in front of the other, just keep going. Somehow it will work. And then it all came together. And in the end, I had to sell my house in the US to build it. But you know what? I'm all in. This is home. Bali's home. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know all of the story. I didn't know all the depths of it.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a whole lot.
So you saved this beautiful book from burning fire.
Yeah.
You let everything go. This book is about happiness.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you had to deal with all of your own emotions through 5 years worth.
Yeah.
Now you've been building what for the last year? It's finally done.
We started
2
building.
years?
I started building right at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to pull the trigger to build. It's scary. And so right when COVID started, there was a contractor that was just finishing up, sending all of his workers back to Java. And I said, no, bring them over to my place. Let's start. So we just started. And I was just starting with the idea to build 1 or 2 floors. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew it was going to happen somehow. So I just wanted to build 1 or 2, get started. That's another big lesson, is just get started.
Yeah.
Once you get started, then more manifesting starts to happen. And I knew I would do it in the end. Sometimes I had major doubts.
Oh my gosh.
But, and it's been a really crazy, emotional and stressful journey. But I also committed to it. Just before we started building, I went to India and did a yoga retreat, not to teach. I did a teacher training, 200-hour teacher training. And the sole purpose of that for me was to learn how to try and stay calm during building, because I know how building is from when I did it before.
Yeah.
It's so stressful. So I was committed to the process, and I wanted the process to be as stress-free as possible, still stressful, but I wanted to really enjoy the journey as well. Same thing with the books. The books to me are not about selling a bunch of books. It's the journey, and it's the value that the kids get, and it's the look on the faces of the kids when I sing the songs, and the kids all have these. I used to take
Yes,
I used to take 30 or 50 pair of these glasses and dole them out to all the kids. So the kids are all wearing these glasses without lenses. I pop the lenses out, and they're all sitting there and singing the song and singing the chorus, and then chasing me down afterwards. There's little Bobby, there's little Bobby. And it's just so special. And I don't have children, so that to me is my safety net almost.
Yeah.
If I don't have kids, I want to contribute. Life lessons. And
yeah.
each book has a life lesson in it.
I mean, I love it too. And I'm reading it. It's like, yeah, now knowing that it's all based on a song, and it's all these lessons about Bobby, and he has this conversation with the moon. And
that book you're looking at there is on the planets.
Yeah, the planets.
The lesson in that book has to do with Pluto. Because Pluto is no longer considered a planet, right? I didn't know that when I first started writing about the planets, but then I just found out from someone that Pluto no longer exists, and I was like, what do you mean it no longer exists? So the whole lesson of that book became, just because you're not like other people doesn't mean you don't fit in.
Yeah, yeah.
So I try and incorporate some kind of really valuable lesson for kids behind the scenes. My goal is that, there's so many people that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it may be, later in life, after you're a child and adolescent, where we're seeking all these self-help books.
Yeah.
I would like to somehow have those lessons in the books for children, so they learn this stuff in a fun way when they're kids, and at least some of these valuable ones that they don't need so much, the self-help books, as they get older.
Yeah,
they learn
don't
the
have to
happiness.
peel the onion. Like, let's help them figure it out, you know, without having to do all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's stressful being a child, and that's my contribution to kids. If I don't have kids, then I will have millions of kids.
Right? I love it. So now the Voice of the Moon with little Bobby is the planets.
Yep.
And then the next one
First one is on happiness.
Yep.
The second one is on the planets, so it teaches the kids about the planets. The third one it's probably my favorite story. It's a beautiful story about the oceans. And it's about this whale, Makua the whale, which is Kobe Aberton's son. And that's a whole nother, I was looking for characters.
Cool.
And I was sitting down the beach, and this guy walked by, and he had this tattoo of Makua.
Yeah.
And I went, hey, excuse me. And he said, I didn't know him at the time. And he said, yeah. And I go, that tattoo on your neck, Makua. I go, is that Hawaiian? And he said, yeah. And I said, what's it mean? And he said, Prince of the Ocean. And I go, that's perfect. Can I use that for one of my children's books? And he's like, yeah, dude, whatever. Sure. So, and then afterwards, after the fire, Kobe actually said, he was the one that said, hey, your family, come, you don't have a place to, where are you going to stay? Come stay with us.
Wow.
So I got to know Makua and the family really well. And so Makua became the main character in the Oceans book. It's Makua the whale. And it's a beautiful story. So then we have the oceans, Makua the whale. And then the fourth one is on love. That's about these glasses. And it's basically just teaching kids how to look at the world with the magical glasses. Yeah. So it kind of, you put the glasses on and you see love is basically how, and then I teach them through the book that you don't need the glasses to see love in a different perspective. So that was a very challenging one to write. And then the fifth one is about pollution. And that's a cool story, which actually has Rosanna's kids in it. They're all tied to characters in my life, you know?
Kids around here, you know?
And so that's a beautiful story about kids that lose paradise. It's this beautiful paradise, and then they discovered it. They go every year, and then they come back one year, and it's filled with trash. So what do? Nobody knows the answer. And so little Bobby comes and helps them, and they go and they start learning how to deal with it. And how they deal with it is they're going on a trail, and one village doesn't, they see school kids in the rain, and they can't go out in the rain because they don't have raincoats. And they're like, what about the plastic bags? Let's use the plastic bags for raincoats for the kids. So they bring them along. Another village doesn't have water storage for water, and there's tons of plastic water bottles. Let's use the plastic water bottles. Another one's, they don't have fences for the cows. Let's use the tires to make fences. So this whole effort goes to clean up this lost paradise. And again, at the end, it turns into paradise. So that's the 5th book, and that is about, it's almost done. I just have to work on the illustrations for that. The cool thing about the magical glasses that I want to mention is the book on love. What I discovered is that 5% of the population of kids are colorblind.
Wow.
And nobody knows until the kids are,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know until the kids are
identify.
later in life when they go get a job interview, whatever it may be. So what I'm doing with that book is we're actually doing the illustrations are made in such a way in that book that the child's not going to be able to see certain things. And then the parent will go, what do you mean you don't see that? And so it's a diagnosis for color blindness.
Wow.
So what I want to try and do is there's a company that makes glasses for colorblind, and if you've seen any of those YouTube videos, it's priceless. People put the glasses on and they see color for the first time, and every time they're crying. So my idea is to do a sponsorship and to be able to then get kids glasses, so they first diagnose them and then get them glasses so they can see when they're colorblind. And then the 6th and 7th book, which is a 7-book series. 6th book is on yoga and teaching kids about yoga, and then the 7th book is about meditation. I just went to Nepal with the idea in mind of how are kids, a lot of kids in those countries, India and Nepal, they just grow up meditating. In the Western world, it's not normal.
Not normal.
So I want to pass that on to the kids about yoga and meditation. So.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. I can't wait for more of these to come out, because the whole series right now, can they find this now?
They can find 3 of them on Amazon.
Okay.
If you search under Little Bobby or The Voice. Little Bobby is spelled, it's a little tricky, Litl, so it's Little Bobby.
Yeah, Little Bobby, yeah.
But The Voice of the Moon, or my name, Bobby Priest, on Amazon.
We'll make sure we put all the links around, because it's really brilliant, and there's song to it. It connects to music, and
I can't wait to finish the whole 7-book series and then provide a whole series to people.
It's so cool. Thank you for sharing this. I now know so much more about you than I even knew before, and I'm just excited for.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for, especially it's our last day in the studio, and here we are. I've got our neighbor, Bobby Priest, that we've been talking to the last 3 years about this story, and finally we do it.
Finally, right? Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to be unstoppable. We'll see you next season.